Bonjour, 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 bonjour. There goes the 20 to the lead like always. That driver Christopher Bell. Every Sunday just the same. The books forget his name. The legendary C. Bell. Look, there he goes, just minding his own business. He doesn't like to show and tell. With that determined look, but the car where it stood, what a puzzle to the rest of us, Bell. Oh, isn't this amazing? It's my favorite part because you'll see. Here's where he restarts 20th. But he passes the whole entire field in stage 3. Now it's no wonder that his name means beauty. His driving has no parallel. But behind that steering wheel, I'm afraid no fan appeal. Very different from the rest of us. He's nothing like the rest of us. Very different from the rest of us, Bell.
Hey, I've never gotten to applaud to one of those before. Beautiful, beautiful.
You've left me speechless. You've left me speechless, Mr. Massey. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Happy Hour. My name is Trey Lyle, 1/2 or 1/3 of your regular hosting duties. My name, of course, as I said, was Trey Lyle, and I'm so thrown off by that song right now, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get this back on track. The artist, formerly known as Michael Massey at M_Massey22. I didn't know you went French on us. That was I'm never prepared for those videos. I might you send them to me, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, but I make it a point to never watch them beforehand because I want my live reaction and I'm trying to absorb all of what I just watched. But congratulations, you left me befuddled.
Well, thank you. I figured for this show, Beauty and the Beast is the perfect thing to cover from because I'm the beauty, right? And you're the beast, Trey.
Yeah, that's it. No, we know who really. We leave the beast on his own podcast called Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan. So that's where we leave the beast between you two. I could tell some stories of some nights spent on the road with you two, but we're not here for that. Caleb Barnes joining us yet again at Caleb Barnes _ rocking the Jeff Gordon t-shirt. Caleb, you just got to see what I saw. Are you as befuddled as me?
It was beautiful. Led up this big finale, and it was something to behold. So, congrats! Maybe possibly your best ever. And Massey's going to work on the next Disney Cinderella or Disney princess piece. We'll see.
Maybe next up is some like Let It Go with or are we gonna do some Moana? I don't know if Moana's a Disney princess, but I know
yeah
Elsa is. But what is it? You go Snow White, I guess Cinderella. We're gonna actually, we are gonna talk Cinderellas next week. We're working on a bonus Cinderella topic because this is March, and in the words of John Rothstein, we don't sleep till May. But if you cover NASCAR, we don't sleep till November because that's how long this season is. Our guest this week, and the only reason he signed up, he said, and I quote to me, "I will do anything for Michael Massey." And I said to him, that is a very dangerous proposition, my friend. I'm scared for you. Devon Henry, Sports 360 AZ, as well as at Devon Henry 77. Devon, welcome in to the podcast. And are you okay? Like, has he put a spell on you? Is like, how can you have interactions with Michael Massey and think, yeah, that's the guy I want to help out?
Well, I tell you what, I did forget to finish the quote. It was help Michael Massey once ever. So this is the one time, and then we're done after that. But I got to race against Michael in Monday Night Racing a lot, and so He
got
gave me
wrecked by
some
him a lot?
favors. No, he'd wrecked the other guys. That was the beneficial part.
Let me guess.
That's
You were in
why I
the
owe him.
front, and he was in the way back because that's
Oh
what I was.
no. He was like 2 spots behind me, but then he'd wreck the other guys, and so like I'd have more room. I'd be like, this is great. This is good to go.
Smart strategy. Well, so honored to have you in. You are, of course, in Phoenix this past weekend. The one of only 4 of us. So we're gonna talk a lot about Phoenix in this one. We'll talk a little bit about the success of Front Row Motorsports. I know you did a couple of things with Michael McDowell, so we want to highlight that for you, as well as we're going to talk about that during this great podcast, and maybe some other fun stuff, some superstitions, because Sunday is St. Patrick's Day, and as you know, Massey and I will be at Bristol. The media center might get a little rowdy in the back because we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day the night before. Just want to warn the people going to Bristol about that. But I kid, of course. We have to be professional. That's why we have this podcast. But as always, make sure you sit back, relax, crack open that cold one. Unless you're driving, of course, because here at Front Stretch, we respect, respectful driving and, obeying the laws. But let's dive right on in with it. Devon, you are our guest. You get to go first.
Get to go first. What am I talking about here? Just going through Front Row Motorsports?
Yes, sir.
Because this has been a lot. I mean, this weekend was really cool. I'm an Arizona native, and so oddly enough, I did an interview with Michael McDowell probably about a year or 2 ago now, and I'm sitting in my backyard. It's the most scenic spot I have in this house, so I'll go set some stuff up over there. And after the interview, he's like, "You're done recording, right?" And I was like, what are we going to talk about here? Like, am I getting like some juicy information? Did I do something wrong? Like, am I in trouble? And he's like, the houses behind you look like where I grew up. And I was like, probably. I'm on, this street. And I grew up like 3-4 miles. I live 3-4 miles from where he grew up. And so we had 6 Arizonans in the field. 2 of them are transplants, but being able to have that many Arizonans in the field when JJ Yaley was racing with Rick Ware Racing off and on, I mean, a 12th of the field were not just Arizonans, but Arizona natives. And so Michael McDowell's been someone who I've been following throughout. He's been really close to family friends of mine. And so once I got to be in the sport as a journalist, of course, I'm obsessed with this guy because he's one of my favorite people in the garage as a human being. Like, one of my favorite guys to talk to, one of the kindest guys that you'll ever run into. And so seeing him succeed, seeing him win that Daytona 500, seeing him dominate at Indianapolis, and doing all this as an underdog, essentially. And this year, obviously, the pole at Atlanta, the front row start in Daytona, and every single year, probably the past 3 or 4 years, I've been asking him, what changed between now and last year? Because it feels like every year they take this step up at front row. Todd Gilliland this year has been tremendous speed-wise compared to where he's been the past 2 seasons with FRM. And so every year I ask him the same question. What is the difference this year? Why does it feel like, okay, here's another step on the ladder? And every single time he will direct me to, when you look at how we have parlayed our success the past couple of years, it's not one thing here, one thing there. In the offseason, we changed this. In this season, this is working better. It has been parlaying one successful season into winning the Daytona 500, into having an average finish of 15th 2 years ago and winning in Indianapolis last year. They're parlaying all of these extra little, we get better at this, get better at this. And now this year, that 34 car is a contender every single week. That 38 car is leading laps every single week. And it's not just one thing or another that's working better for them this year or in the offseason they improved at. It's them the past few years getting better, better, and better. And not only are they getting better, but the competition is noticing that as well. And
I'll go first. I was going to say, I would go first. I think the big step this year is I think they got rewarded for their growth, becoming a tier 1 Ford program. I mean, look at what McDowell. I mean, if McDowell didn't, let's say, finish second at Indianapolis, he still makes the playoffs last year. That's how well he was doing in points. Obviously, the first couple races did not go well for him. You win a Daytona 500, and that Bob Jenkins, the owner, took what he did and what happened from that 500 and reinvested it heavily into his program, both at the cup and the truck level. You look at, Zane Smith winning a truck championship with Front Row was, is something that really can help as well. But you think about Zane was like looked at as the number 1 Ford prospect. Obviously he's now with Trackhouse and that doesn't work out, but like they believed in Todd Gilliland so much that they ignored Zane. Essentially, they didn't ignore Zane, but they picked Todd over Zane if that was the debate in the end. But you look at this team, like they've taken all the right steps. They're very Furniture Row-esque. You get the right crew chiefs in there, like when your crew chiefs are getting poached by SHR and Hendrick Motorsports, and then you're still keeping the success. That shows the culture you have, and so and how well the growth is. But once they became the tier 1 Ford team, like, and their partnership is with Penske, who is an elite program, like, they're taking full advantage of it and really trying to maximize as much as they can. Like the fact that Todd Gilliland is leading or up there in laps led, like he's showing why they reinvested in him. You look at Michael McDowell, like he's going to be a real factor at every road course we go to at this point, and that was something we really didn't talk about a couple years ago.
Yeah, they've been incredible. I go back to like whenever they won back in 2013, 2014 with David. 2013 at Talladega with David Reagan. I still remember that call, and Mike Joy. Get chills every time at the end of that race with them finishing 1-2. But whenever they won that race, you're kind of like, oh, well, it's a great story, great underdog victory. But I mean, how often are we going to see something like this? But then 2016, that was the year Buescher got the win at Pocono as a rookie.
Armageddon.
Yeah, the fog win. And even though that was the fog win and everything, I thought their team really, with Buescher, he was a great driver in the Xfinity series, and he took care of his equipment. And I thought he kind of made some solid runs that year with Front Row Motorsports. And then, of course, they got bounced first round of the playoffs. But it was one of those, like, you actually noticed him. It wasn't like they were running outside the top 20. They were competing inside the top 15. And honestly, I felt like they just had situations take them out. And then fast forward a few more years to when they started their truck team, I was kind of a little taken aback. Like, what's a truck team going to do for a smaller organization like Front Row? But they started winning races in their truck program, and it almost seems like it's carried over to the Cup Series. I don't know if it's because they're developing their own talent, their own guys from within and promoting them from within, or what's going on since then. But I feel like ever since they started their truck team, they've been even more consistent with showing up, having great results. And the Cup side, it started on the road course because of how good Michael McDowell is. But then, yeah, the last few years, they've been one of the best two-car teams out there. And the first year of the next gen was Ford in general, I felt like kind of struggled on most of the racetracks. But then last year they were showing some great speed everywhere, not just on the road courses, but then on the road courses, Michael McDowell had that fantastic run at Indianapolis. And then he came out the next week at Watkins Glen and another great run. And so he's such a great driver. I think we look a lot at like the young talent, who's going to be next to step into these rides and everything. But we've also seen with like guys like Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, that the older they get, the more experience they get, they also somehow get even better. And Michael McDowell is one of those guys that the longer he's been racing in a stock car, he's just improved like fine wine. And he's right there, I think, at the peak, especially with this equipment now that they've got the partnership with Penske.
Yeah, when that truck team started out, I think a lot of people thought it was just a way. It was basically David Gilliland racing, an extension of that, and to not look like Todd was driving for his dad, because they kind of came out of the same shop, and a lot of the crossover between those two teams. But then it became its own thing, and David Gilliland went over to Toyota, formed Tricon, and it's like that was kind of a line in the sand. Like that's when that truck team started building momentum, and then, like you said, Caleb, it built over into the Cup side. And Todd grew as a driver. I mean, this is a guy that kind of blew his opportunity at Kyle Busch Motorsports. That now he's gotten, I guess it was just too much too soon. Now he's really grown as a better driver to where, who do you guys think? I have pulled up a stat, Massey Stat Corner. The top 3 lap leaders so far this season after 4 races. The first name, wow. Kyle Larson, Arizona transplant. There you go, Devin. That's expected, right? He led everything out in Vegas. Number 2, Denny Hamlin. Number 3, Todd Gilliland.
Yeah, I
he's
just
led
said
the
that.
third.
Hey, Massey, remember when I said Todd Gilliland is like amongst the leaders
Yeah,
in laps
he didn't
led?
say where he was. I said third.
He was second coming into this week. He was first the week before. Now he's third.
Same difference. Come on.
He's got a bronze medal. So there you go.
That was so good. In honor, Dalton would have done way better with his stat corner. We miss him. But yeah, I think ultimately, the expectation has changed at front row where they're expected to make the playoffs, or at least one of their drivers, and that might be the biggest sign of where their growth has come. I mean, that's at least my expectation. I feel like every like we have like 20 to 25 drivers, and we touched on last week like the deepest field, 20-25 drivers with the expectation of making the playoffs. Well, at least Michael McDowell falls in that, and I think Todd Gilliland should fall top 20-ish, and that's something we've never seen. At least that's how I view it. I don't know how you guys view it.
I feel like it's the master and the apprentice with McDowell and Gilliland, because we've seen how much Todd has grown racing on super speedways and road courses, the two places that Michael McDowell has traditionally been good at. And I mean, I go back to 2021 at the start of the COTA races, and Front Row has never lost a truck race at COTA, I believe. It's that they've won twice with Zane Smith, and then that inaugural one with Todd Gilliland. And then seeing his growth, his progression last year on the road courses, he was fantastic as well. Top 10 right there at Indianapolis, I believe, with McDowell. So I feel like he's like right in the footsteps, or in the tire tracks, I guess, since this is a NASCAR podcast. But they're right there together, and Todd is learning a lot from Michael as well. He's gonna get there as well.
I'm annoyed that NASCAR messed up the start of Atlanta when they sent Joey Logano to the rear. They should have bumped the guy in third place up to the front, or fourth place. It was Todd Gilliland.
Yep.
It would have been Front Row Motorsports, both starting on the front row for the first time ever, I think.
Yeah.
So that was a blown opportunity by NASCAR. But no, the thing I wanted to get at with the lap sled with Todd is if they keep taking those gambles, they left him out there for a long time. He didn't catch the caution, but one of these times he's going to hit that lucky break, and he might just win a race because of they keep doing these gambles to get him out front.
Well, and both Michael and Todd have led laps in, I think it's 3 of the 4 races so far this year. And Todd this weekend was the most, out of sorts because it was under that green flag sequence. But when you look at the 30 and the 34 car have led laps in 3/4 of the races this year each, that's a big deal. And talking about that mentality about like where you want to be about with their finishes and stuff, that's something that I talked to lengths with that Michael last year. The fact that he goes, it's so different now that we get a top 15 at one point last year. And I'm disappointed. We're disappointed. That's a top 15. That's a complete culture and mentality change going 12th is not good enough anymore. 13th is not good enough anymore. They expect to be in the top 10 every single week.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move on to our next topic. Let's focus a little bit on, this is going to be a fun debate, our next 2 topics about Phoenix Raceway. We'll first talk about the package itself. So I will leave the floor to good old Beauty, as he likes to call himself, Mr. Michael Massey. The bell of the ball.
Yeah.
It's the beard. It's all the beard.
But yeah, I think also if you're comparing me to Emma Watson, I'll take that any day.
No, I'm comparing you to the cartoon. Actually, you know what? I'm comparing the little what's it? What's the candle thing?
The candelabra.
Candelabra. That's what you look like, or the clock.
You look like the little mug with the chip in its head.
Hey, man, that's the best ride at Disney. So,
but no. So, there's a lot of questions going into this weekend because it was the first race with the updated short track package, and it really feels like the views were all over the place. You had drivers saying it was worse. You had drivers saying it was a little bit better. You had people saying the race was better than previous next gen Phoenix races. You had the fans. Jeff Gluck's poll, good race poll, I think it ended at 40%, which is not that good. So a lot of people were hating on it, and it's just it makes me wonder: is it the package? Is it the track? Do we need to wait and see at somewhere like Martinsville or Richmond or something to see if the adjustments they made to the package were improvement or not? Are we still at the same spot? I don't know. What do you guys think about this whole situation?
I kind of almost feel like it's still the package. I know a lot of people talk about the track, and Phoenix has always been one of those where when it's on the schedule, like as a kid, I was like, oh, Phoenix. It was like Phoenix and New Hampshire, and they're two similar tracks where I was kind of like, oh, like I don't know, I'm not going to be super interested in this race. But as I got older, my appreciation for Phoenix has grown a little bit, and obviously they're doing something right out there because it's packed to the grandstands every race, spring or championship. But just what I've seen at Martinsville the last few years compared to what it was before the next gen era, I feel like that's translated as well to all these other flat short tracks, and even just the short tracks in general. Bristol has been a little bit different as well. So and maybe not even just the package. I'll go a step further to say it's still just this whole car platform with the way, not just the tire compounds, but the width of the tires and just the ways that the cars drive, the shifting, all of that. I think it's just these cars, they drive a lot like the sports cars or even like the IndyCar kit cars. And we see IndyCar when they go to ovals, they have a really hard time passing as well. So I got to go more with a package, but I'll be curious to see what you guys think.
Devin, you can go ahead.
All right, I was gonna take the tail because I'm the Phoenix guy, so there might be some bias here a little bit. But I was scrolling through Twitter today, and I didn't even remember that Richard Petty had a podcast too. I was like, oh, okay, here he is scrolling up on my timeline. I don't remember who his guest was, but
speaking of Kyle Petty or Richard Petty, his son Kyle Petty, part 2 of his interview will be on Bringing the Heat this week. So I had to throw that.
Yes, please.
Cheap plug in.
But I just found it really interesting. I don't know who the guest was, but they both agreed like it's a racy track, but it's still not a racy car. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not the only one thinking that. Okay, so at least I'm on the same boat there. But I think at least mindset wise for NASCAR as a whole has gotten better. Because I go back 5-6 years ago and I was pulling my hair out when they're slapping PJ1 at Texas. And I'm going, my mom always told me, control what you can control. So NASCAR goes into situations and goes, we have bad quality racing. What do we change? The race car that we set rules and specs for, that parts are built for specifically for our team? Or this giant massive earth over here, we're going to slap some stuff on there. We're trying to control that part of it. That's not controlling what you can control. You can control the race car. And now we're taking those steps to start actually controlling the race car. We're not putting PJ1, sticky stuff, whatever it's called, at every single racetrack now, trying to change the racetrack. We're trying to make the race cars race on the racetrack. So I think that step one is that has been much more proactive of NASCAR in recent years, is having more of a take on the race car. But it still feels like to me that the racetrack, they're going from in 1 and 2, right? They're going Kevin Harvick line on the apron all the way to the wall. I can't remember a time in my lifetime where those corners at Phoenix, whether they were 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, that they're using every inch of that corner. And you have the ability to make passes on the inside and on the outside. So the track is still racy to me. So obviously I think the package, I think the car itself, like you said, has more work to be done. And in the IndyCar comparison, I was at the last IndyCar race at Phoenix Raceway, and literally they're so aerodynamic, they're so fast that they couldn't lap the car in front of them. They just get stuck there. And these race cars are made to be aerodynamically sound. So there's obviously still some changes that need to be done with the car, I think, in general, even at some of the mile and a halves, even though the racing is so spectacular there. But I can't take it saying that it's the racetrack. I think that's still a good quality racetrack, but you got to put the right kind of car on there. People call me insane. I enjoy watching the ARCA races more than the Cup races. It's not the Rex. It's not the battle, blah, 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 blah. Those kids in those ARCA cars are having one heck of a time, especially the cars that are ill handling. They show you how difficult that racetrack is to drive. They freaking struggle, and it's fun to watch. And for the past, the Gen 6 car, they're like slot cars. So with these ARCA cars, you have inexperienced kids in race cars that are hard to drive, and they show you that it's a difficult racetrack to manage. And we haven't gone down the Cup Series the past decade.
I think the Xfinity Series delivers there. I mean, an underrated part of the track is the restarts. I mean, from just a spectacle, like you're watching it on TV, they'll do the aerial shots when they fan out and it's just cars everywhere. That's a really cool spectacle. I think it's the package. We're not going to see what it's like this weekend. I think the next track we'll see it at is Coda and Richmond, because I believe that they will not use this short track package at Bristol and Dover.
Correct.
Because of the concrete. So we won't see this until in a couple weeks till Coda, and then Richmond we'll see it. So I think the package is TBD, but I do hear what the drivers say in terms of like this is an issue. Like it feels like nothing got fixed, and it feels like NASCAR is doing everything it can to avoid the most obvious solution, or at least like giving the drivers what they think is the most obvious solution, because it could be as simple as like you turn up the horsepower and maybe once a topic we've talked about here, if Honda comes into NASCAR and they finally get that fourth OEM and they're like, all right, let's tune these engines up, and that happens, then maybe the issue's gone and we have good short track racing again. But I think this point I lean towards it being the package because I've seen good races at Phoenix. I mean, you also need to, and we're going to talk about expectations, but I think there needs to be a better understanding of, like most short tracks, if you watch any short track race, it's hard to pass in general, like every short track. So it's kind of something that we need balance in ultimately. But I lean towards the package, but I need to see more from the package.
Yeah, I think the Phoenix gets unfair criticism because it hosts the championship. Right, it's got this like magnifying glass on
it. It has 2 races.
That too, yeah, that hurts as well. Which I think we shouldn't have it as the championship race until we get the short track package to optimum form, you know. But that's just my opinion.
It also left. Sorry to interrupt, Massey. I wanted to jam my point in of it left. I think also what hurt it is the fact it left Homestead. Yeah, which was like consensus, like best track in the series. So it's like
right. If it gone from Texas to Phoenix, if the championship race went from Texas to Phoenix,
it'd be the greatest race ever.
Yeah, but I like tracks that I love the drafting tracks and stuff where you hold it wide open and super close. But I also love tracks where you see the drivers getting a challenge and fighting behind the wheel. And that's why I like tracks like Pocono and Dover, because like those get a lot of hate, but they're hard to drive. And I feel the same way about Phoenix. We saw Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin both wreck themselves. Like nobody hit them. They were driving too hard and stepped over and wrecked themselves. And those are experienced guys. So I just feel like you're saying, Trey, crank up that horsepower. Make it so when you touch that loud pedal, it's like, you touch it too much, that thing's going to spin out. And I think it'd be a real challenge to drive there. Make the tires wear more. The tires were better this time than last year. There was definitely wear. Go even further, Goodyear, and make it, those guys that go too hard at the start, they're a lap down at the end of the run. That would just be awesome to see that kind of coming and going.
Reminder, we're live streaming here on youtube.com/frontstretch, as well as on our Facebook page, facebook.com/frontstretch. So make sure you like this video, subscribe if you're on our YouTube page. As always, you can also listen to the Front Stretch Podcast Network. Subscribe to that as well. I touched on Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan. Also a great conversation Massey had with Parker Kligerman is going to be a part of that, because they both maybe KP and PK may discuss Dale Jr. leaving NBC. So a lot of things there as well. But let's talk about the fans themselves. Massey brought up a point about the Jeff Gluck poll. Caleb brought this idea into the group, and we made it the title of the podcast this week. So, Mr. Barnes, I will leave you the floor to present the idea to the group, and I think this can be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, all right. So let me frame this one up. So everybody's all up in arms over this Phoenix race again, and let's be honest, the last few years haven't been super great. I thought the championship race last year actually was pretty compelling because of the championship story and Ross Chastain, but that's a podcast for last year. We're talking about this past weekend at Phoenix, and watching through stage 1 and stage 2, I honestly was kind of enjoying it, having a good time. There were some comers and goers. You had some guys moving through the field. You had some guys moving backwards. It wasn't your traditional everybody gets stuck in one place. And then once we got to stage 3 and guys had some time to adjust their cars for the racetrack conditions and everything, that's when we saw more people get stuck. But even looking back at the battle at the end of the race between Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe, they were pulling all sorts of slide jobs on each other, side by side for multiple laps. And honestly, I didn't think the racing was that bad. It wasn't the same as your super speedway pack style racing, but my question, are we having unrealistic expectations for the racing? It kind of almost stems from another question of, do we even know what we want? Because we see 2 weeks of super speedway racing and everybody's like, oh, I'm sick of it. But then we have a week where there's not a 3-wide finish to the line and everybody's like, oh, this was awful. So I guess, yeah, I'll stop there and let you guys throw in your opinion. But are we starting to get a little unrealistic with our opinions of what the racing needs to look like?
I think it's kind of a handful of there's the expectation, but I also think that the loudest opinions too get said the most, right? It's not necessarily the popular opinion, it's the loudest opinion. And Phoenix has had its issues the past few years. You can't deny that the short track package on the Gen 6 car and the start of the next gen car were not quality racing. And so not only do you bring a bias in from past years, but on top of that, it does get magnified because it's not Homestead, because it's not that 5-6 different lanes that you can utilize on both sides of the stretch. Like, Phoenix Raceway is a different kind of racetrack. It's a methodical, lay it down 312 miles of trying to figure out what's the best way to make this car go. And Christopher Bell's team was the guys to do that, going from 21st to 2nd before Martin Truex Jr. had to pit. And what was that span of 40, 50 laps? So that's not like you can't say there's no passing. You can't say that there wasn't excitement at the end, because within the final 5 laps of stage 1 and stage 2, there's a pass for the stage win. So I haven't heard like a legitimate reason why the race was bad. If it's your opinion that kind of racing to you is boring, then that's your opinion. That's okay. Like, that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of people who don't want to go out to their local late model race at their home track because they sit like this forever. Then someone bumps and then eventually they pass. That's literally short track racing, as opposed to what like Denny and Joey Logano have said in the past. But I don't know. In my mind, that it's not just the unrealistic expectations. It's just the fact that the louder opinions on social media are the ones that are sometimes the most accepted.
What? That happens? People
Sometimes.
say
I don't see it often
on social media. That's news to me, man. I just see, Brian Nolan crying about the Jets on Twitter. That's all I see.
Future vice president quarterback.
Hey, shout out to my boy Tyrod Taylor for signing with the Jets. So
Tyrod,
the Ty God. All right, that's our football section here of Happy Hour. But I completely agree with you. I sat there and yes, there were moments where I was not entertained, but that's like 95% of the races every year. I enjoyed the finish of that race. I mean, you add the Denny spin into things. It added some, late race drama where it was basically like, all right, Bell versus Reddick on who can get through the field. And, Toyota dominated that race, but it wasn't one Toyota. It was Denny. It was Seabell. It was Tyler Reddick. It was, Martin Truex Jr. So you had different strategies happen in that race. This was all traditional short track racing. And as someone who, and Massey is too, who's growing up, who is very sentimental to a track that is getting very disrespected, Richmond, I think it's a very similar case of people just not understanding the track and what changes have happened and what type of racing it will deliver. No, it's not going to be the same as years ago. Well, that's one, because of the package, but two, I remember the finish with Hamlin and him. Was it two stops in the stage, and he had to rush through the field, and he gets the pass by Byron with 3 laps to go. How is that not a good finish? Yeah. So, and I love, I will always love Richmond because, That's where the foundation of my, my childhood been. Like, I have Dale Jr. on my shoulder. I got to see him win on my birthday, and it was the greatest birthday of my life because I had a birthday party at the track, and then my favorite driver wins the race. Like, I'm going to love Richmond. It's the same way Devon has this affinity towards Phoenix, and I completely understand it. And so I think that fans do have unrealistic expectations at some points. But guess what? That's fans. At the end of the day, that's fans. As someone who is a Philadelphia Eagles fan, along with the boss man Tom Bowles, there are times where, I have unrealistic expectations about the Eagles and I get my hopes up. It's just being that, that fan. And it's the good. It's kind of like the good and the bad with being a fan. You want, some fans want a certain thing every week. And yes, it's an unrealistic expectation to have, but it's never going to go away because that's what a fan is.
You don't have to tell me twice about dashed expectations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't even want to bring up the trauma of being a Virginia Tech fan and being
Virginia Tech too. Yeah. This week I've been hit with Virginia Tech women's having horrible news, and then
this podcast officially is putting good vibes. We're about to talk about superstitions. This superstition is that Liz Kitley's knee is completely healed, or at least good enough to play.
But yeah, so I think a part of it, the track is selling out, right? 6 straight sellouts.
And that's all NASCAR cares about. I mean, that's
right.
Right?
Right.
And that is 42,000, by the way. 42,000 seats in the grandstand, plus some infield stuff. And then, of course, the campgrounds. Whenever I ask any driver, they go, the campgrounds here are freaking massive. So not everyone in the campgrounds is part of that 42,000 either.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's people that don't even make it to the race that are going too hard at the campground. But so the people that are going must be having a good time, must enjoy what they're seeing. So that makes me think it's the broadcast that's not doing it justice. And I think what it is the broadcast. We're at the TikTok generation now, right? Where everybody's got a short attention span and wants the 3 wide every single lap, or else they lose focus. Look, when NASCAR was booming, those races from like 1998, 2000, they stunk. Those races stunk. Jeff Gordon just ran off and left everybody. But NASCAR was still exploding because those people back then had longer attention spans. But the problem is TV's still aiming at that audience when they need to be aiming towards like the younger people. And you need to follow stuff like Christopher Bell marching his way up from 20th. We didn't see him till he got to the top 5.
Well, no, Michael, I was going to ask you actually, because I'm typically filming at the track, so I'm not seeing. I get to see like a quarter of the track, right? I don't get to see the broadcast until I go back and watch it again. How much was shown of Christopher Bell going 20th to first?
Oh, hardly any. Like the last couple of spots.
I thought Martin Truex was a lap down at the end of the race. I thought he was like trying to get his lap back.
7th. And he finished 7th.
Like an F1 broadcast would follow Truex, going from being a lap down, unlapping himself, and marching his way dramatically up to 7th.
Yeah, like that's awesome. Max Verstappen is 20 seconds ahead, so why would they show the leader?
Exactly. But I bet that was awesome to watch him do that. If you were sitting in the grandstands watching Truex, I bet that was awesome. So yeah, we got to change these broadcasts though.
And I love not every pass is going to be someone blowing somebody else's doors off, or even, Las Vegas where they're throwing slide jobs on each other, or they get super far apart. I mean, I like watching the passes where you can see him getting close, and you're like, oh, is he going to get to his quarter panel? And then you can see him get there and kind of pull him back, and then they race side by side for multiple laps because like one guy would wrap the bottom better in 1 and 2, but then the other guy would get the run off the corner. And so I love watching battles like that. Honestly, the race to me kind of felt like even with the stages, it felt like a pre-stage race. The cautions just kind of felt natural, and then you had that rash at the start of stage 3, but then the way it shook up the strategy and everything, and then that long green flag run to the end, it felt like a natural race, and I really appreciated that aspect of it as well. I think everybody expects the quick passes and the crashes and the contact, and then whenever it happens in the truck championship race, everybody's upset about it. So yeah.
And to me, I know that people would have been upset, but if that was the championship race, I would have been more than satisfied with how that went, because not only did you have the differing strategies, you got to pinpoint your strategy on the crew chief. You have to execute on pit road like Truex did under green flag when no one else did, right? And you got to be able to pass cars. And everything to me that makes a good race happened at Phoenix. And I know it's not the 5-wide racing at Homestead where you can use all these different lines and there's passing and there's tire fall off, but you have these aspects of pit road strategy and figuring out your car throughout the race that we don't see at Homestead. That's the glitz and the glamour of some of the racing. Yes, and it looks good on TV, but that's why I'm confused about some of the disbelief that Phoenix was a good race. Is that from what I saw, seeing a quarter of the racetrack the whole day, I was still sitting there going, this seems like a good race to me. I'm going on Twitter and that's not what I'm seeing. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what the discourse is going on here that says, and like I said, I haven't heard any legitimate complaints as to why this was a bad race.
If that's the championship race, like you said, then that's the equivalent. Like Bell's comeback would have been like the Patriots coming back on the Falcons.
Exactly. That would have been, if showcased correctly, right? That would have been a massive deal. That would be, look at this guy who we've thrown off and just forgot about him so many times. Executes, the whole team does, except for on that pit stop at the end of stage 2. But besides that, every other way they execute, you win the race. That's a complete race.
Yeah, I bet Christopher Bell wishes that race worked out the way it did.
Yeah.
You know, in the fall last year. But I think it's going to be interesting to see as time goes on, like, can fans' perspective change on things? Because I think they have this idea, and it might be with the younger crowd, a more video game-like culture where it's a lot more beating and banging and you know, I don't want to say disrespect on the racetrack, but just you're able to, I don't want to even say do more on the racetrack, but like, I think the way NASCAR is shown sometimes, and Massey kind of brought this point up, and this is kind of where the expectations fall, is not in the correct point of view, because maybe they cater towards that person who's watching for the first time, which is a good audience to go after because you want new fans. But it was it's definitely something. But interesting point here. If that was Chase Elliott, they would have shown it apparently. So, which honestly, I'm not disagreeing with 1400X the next gen, which is, that would be very interesting to see if they put 14. I bet you a lot that they will not put 1400 horsepower in these cars again. We won't see that for a while. All right, one more topic before we get into our fun bonus topic. So we said a little bit about Formula One. They use obviously multiple tire compounds, and people have talked about the tire maybe being the biggest issue, not the actual package itself. So what if we added a wrench into things and explored using multiple tire compounds? This was used before in the 2017 All-Star race, but if you maybe had a softer tire and then a harder tire, and you had to require they use, let's say, if it's 4 pit stops, you have to use like 2 and 2 or whatever. I'm not smart, so whatever that would be. So, but if you added that wrench of strategy into things, do you think that could? How would you be? Would you be in favor of that? Would you just be like, no, they need to make one tire, maybe make it softer? How do you feel about that?
I want to start by saying horsepower would always be my ideal fix, but for short tracks like this, I feel like all the tires are really hard, and Goodyear is just, for whatever reason, they've been afraid to go softer because they don't want. Understandably, they don't want to get blamed for all these tire failures. But I think if they were able to create this baseline hard tire that just doesn't fall off, which is most of the tires at a lot of these tracks, and then if they're able to create this other tire that did fall off, like we kind of saw at the All-Star race in 2017, or I think that was the year, then it would, imagine Truex not only pitting there at the end, but putting on like a soft compound where he's like absolutely, he was already flying with 50 lap newer tires, but like just cutting through the field. stuff like that. Like if you see guys trying to make a long stint last at the end of the stage versus coming in and pitting and trying to make up like the Denny Hamlin charge at Richmond a few years ago, like that kind of stuff. I don't think it would be like a prolonged fix. I'd still rather see just one tire and better car racing with the packages, but I think it could be an interesting way to possibly try to solve the short track problems.
And I think it's something where I think NASCAR listening to drivers more, I think what would be best too. I know at the end of the day that this is sports is entertainment. If people aren't being entertained, if fans aren't watching, sponsors don't pay, the sport doesn't happen. But the drivers are the ones on the track. The drivers are the one who knows how to drive race cars fast. The drivers are the ones who feel everything that NASCAR, Goodyear, engines are putting into trying to make a more compelling product. And so listening to Chase Elliott, Cole Cusimano from the Arizona Republic gave him a question during media bullpen of just like, oh, how did this tire, that tire? And Chase Elliott was just like, look, you can tell me that's this tire, that tire. I don't feel a difference. I'm just racing the dang car. I don't feel it's different than last year. I don't feel it's different than Martinsville last year. I don't feel it's different than this. The tire itself, I don't think is going to make a big enough difference to fix what, again, we go back to fan expectations. We can do this. We put a soft tire that's thin on there. If it doesn't make a difference, it doesn't make a difference. And if the fans are thinking, oh, this is going to make it so that, they're going 20 miles an hour faster through the dog leg or something, that's not realistic either for a tire compound. It's more them lasting longer, lasting not as long, and put more speed on. Like, I feel like that's almost like gimmicky, but like the opposite of, I don't know what you would call gimmicky, because it's just another element that we're going to put in there that I don't think would make a difference in the actual racing product, that shortening the wheel, changing the horsepower, changing the aerodynamics, things like that are going to have a more significant difference week to week than adding in this extra compound that smaller teams probably aren't going to enjoy buying that tire cost as well.
Yeah, I don't know where I stand on this. It was fun when they tried it in that All-Star race 2017. I feel like it didn't get a fair shake. It was like they tried it once, and it wasn't like, I don't think they really did the tires that differently. And then they're like, oh, that was a horrible idea. We should never do that again. I would definitely be down for trying it in the Clash and the All-Star race again. Like, try it now to see. And, like back in the day, like all the new innovations to races came from stuff that happened in the All-Star race first. Stuff like double file restarts and like caution laps not counting at the end or stuff like that. So let's try it. Let's do it for the exhibition races. And if it works out, maybe we try it on the short tracks or try it on a couple intermediates or just some. Don't do it Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta. You don't need that. Probably not even like a Pocono or something like that.
Road course. You
could do it at a road course. I mean, F1 does it on road courses, so why can't NASCAR? Like, it'd be fun to see. So I'm cool for trying anything, especially because they've taken so much away from what you can do to the car to make it different. Let them play around with the tires a little more.
Good idea. So you know what? I think NASCAR should, maybe listen to this podcast more, because I think we're coming up with great ideas to help them out. And now time for fun. I mentioned St. Patrick's Day is this Sunday, which St. Patrick's Day, Bristol, the return of Bristol on concrete seems like a very interesting combination. But we want to talk about, the luck of the Irish necessarily. So some driving superstitions. There are stories in the past about driving superstitions. Devon, I'll let you go first as we're on our special guest here, Devon. What is a favorite racing superstition of yours, or that you've read?
Man, I don't even know if I really have any. I've tried to bug my dad. He was a sprint car driver here for so long in Arizona. I'm like, what superstitions did you have? And he's like, right sock, left sock. Is that a superstition? No, I guess I do that every day. I don't know. I'm not that big into superstitions. I do know that some people though have a very specific way that you eat before a race, right? And I know in NASCAR when it's a 3.5 hour race at Phoenix, typically that there's a plan. And so because I have such a poor answer, I'm going to share a story instead. As we're sitting in the media center at Phoenix, trying to scarf down some food before driver intros, go out and work the race and everything. And we're sitting there, drivers meeting ends, and some of the drivers come through the media center to exit and get to the pickup trucks for driver intros. And we're sitting there, and Brad Keselowski gets lost. I'm like, that way, dude. Turns around. Ryan Blaney comes up, and we think he's lost too. And he blows by us and goes straight to the lunch. And he's popping up. And what do we got here? What do we got here? I'm like, dude, this is 45 minutes before green flag, my man. And you're about to like pound some random media center food that you don't know is here. Grabs a plate, tosses some salad on there. Austin Dillon comes walking up. You hungry, buddy? Ryan turns around. I'm starving. Grabs some chicken, walks out, and I'm like, apparently he's not superstitious about what you eat before a race, because like I feel like as an athlete going to a 3.5 hour NASCAR race, I would have some sort of method of how I consume food before being strapped into a pilot seat for 3.5 hours.
Let me just say, the way some of those media center meals, not Phoenix in particular, but some of the media centers have meals.
I would not want to eat that before a race.
That wreck your stomach. Like, yeah.
And I will say, I've talked to drivers, I've talked to media members. Phoenix Raceway's food is like a class of its own. Maybe that's why it has the championship, actually.
I will say this. If there is one human being and he works at Front Stretch that could have a pregame meal, anytime, this is at Richmond. I've seen it because it's the only race I've been at. He's been at. I think Adam Cheek could eat the Richmond mac and cheese as his only thing every single day. Massey has seen it too. I mean, he inhales it like that's and I will never forget this. Like, I think they did burgers or something. Like, it was like actually like a nice meal they prepared. And Adam just comes and it's a plate full of mac and cheese.
Yeah, no burger or anything. Yeah,
nothing. And Massey and I are like, what is going on? So shout out to Adam for that. All right, I have a good one, and I Googled this. So basically, it's about Talladega. So obviously, Dale Earnhardt nearly avoided death in 1996 there, but in 1970, champion Bobby Isaacs stopped in the middle of the 1973 race and got out of his car after telling his crew he heard voices telling him to do so. According to Talladega County residents, the land that the speedway sits on once was the home of the I'm going to botch this, Abihka tribe, Abihka tribe in the 19th century. Something that the land must inspire racing. According to a legend, a chief was killed during a horse race. When the tribe was forced to move off by order of President Andrew Jackson, a medicine man cursed the land to anyone who ever lived on it. So, a lot of spooky things happen on Talladega Boulevard. So that might be why. So it's sort of a superstition, but I think the fact that there maybe be a curse on the land that Talladega sits on and the type of racing it can produce in terms of the big wrecks makes sense.
Did you see the movie they made about it? It was like AMP made it, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. It was like 2008 or something. It's like, I can't remember what it was called, but it was something about like the hauntings at Talladega Super Speedway or something like that.
Kayla, when you edit this for a social clip, we're gonna have you insert that video here.
Yeah,
and I know I'm doing that live. I know I'm doing that live, but I think that makes it funnier.
I know Adam Cheek wrote about it. For
shocking.
Yeah, right. But yes, the superstition I go with. There was a story I heard on Scene Vault podcast. I want to say it was either Jason Keller or Jeff Green or someone around in that like early 2000s, late 90s Busch Series, that they had a winning streak and they were wearing the same underwear like every race. And I'm just thinking like that probably stunk. But and then what was the Dale Jr. told a story, his peanuts weren't like Ralph Earnhardt was really weird about you don't come around his car with peanuts, and someone like walked up with a bag of peanuts or something, and he pulled a gun on the guy. I think it was Ralph Earnhardt, but yeah, so it's some of those superstitions. Those guys back there were crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I didn't have the time to do all the in-depth research that you guys did. There's a great YouTube video as well about the lore of Talladega, which is pretty interesting. But I think my favorite, it's like only happened twice. So I know that's like a huge superstition, but a fan giving Dale Sr. a lucky penny, and then he goes out, he tapes it on his dash and goes out and wins the Daytona 500. I mean, that like lucky pennies are superstitions anyways, but the fact that it happened again for the 3-car 20 years later with Austin Dillon. I remember at the start of that race, whenever they talked about it, I was like, no way he's going to win this thing. And then he went out and won the Daytona 500. I don't know. Now, I don't know all the rules of this superstition. Like, I don't know if you can put a plant in there, like have some crew guy's kid be like, hey, like go up and give this guy a penny today. He's going to tape it to the, like, I don't know if
here's $20. Take this penny to Austin.
Yeah. Ryan Blaney had that was a $5 bill stuck to his grill a few years ago. Was that 2020 when he was like just inches away from winning that race? So something about finding money and sticking it to your race car might be a superstition.
Is the fact that Martin Truex always wins the race on Monday a superstition yet?
Ooh.
That could be
one. Didn't win in Daytona.
That is true. He didn't win in Daytona. So maybe Monday Martin is dead. Well, next week, we wanted to do a topic about St. Paddy's Day, but also Selection Sunday is next week. So the bonus topic will be best Cinderella wins. And it's the first time in a while we are prepared for a bonus topic because, ladies and gentlemen, we're very busy people here in the Happy Hour podcast, and maybe we enjoy our happy hours a little too much sometimes, if you know what I mean. But so tweet us at TreyLauVT, at Caleb Barnes _, at im_Massey22, at Front Stretch. I almost said my Twitter twice. Your favorite Cinderella wins in NASCAR. So let us know about that, and that will be our bonus topic for next week. Go ahead.
Look at Evan now. What if he's got a favorite?
You should be able to guess it. It's not even that old.
Michael McDowell winning the Daytona 500. I guess.
Of course. Yes.
That's how we tie the start and the end of the podcast. Devin, I want to leave the floor for you. Anything you want to plug before we get on out of here?
NASCAR Championship Weekend, November 8th, 9th, and 10th at Phoenix Raceway. Be sure to join us here. Tickets are on sale now. Come out to the desert in November or watch it on TV because I'll take TV ratings too. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I can't afford a plane ticket. I don't get paid enough. But do you get a commission for doing that plug?
No, but if the championship race is at Phoenix, that's a lot shorter drive for me than Miami.
That is true.
That's why people ask me, where do you think is the best spot for the championship race? 30 minutes that way. Yep,
that's
definitely that.
For me, it's Richmond because I have a free
exactly. Exactly.
It's a close drive for me. Caleb, thinking out loud again this week. Anything else you want to plug before we get on out of here?
That's it for me this week. And the social clips that Trey mentioned that.
Yeah, he does a great job with those. Yeah. So that's anytime you see the social clips, it's Caleb who does them.
Go like those whenever they pop up on your Twitter feed.
Massey, are you doing Fire on Fridays this week? And you and I and Alex Gentz are heading to good old Bristol, Tennessee, and this will be my first Bristol concrete race. I'm pumped because I've only been to Bristol Dirt. Yeah, I've only been to Bristol once, and it was for Bristol Dirt. I never even went to the freaking football game because I was busy that weekend.
Same. I missed the football game too. I never went to Bristol Dirt. I don't know if I just didn't go because I don't know, just out of protest. But yeah, but I never went to that. So yeah, excited to be going there. Also, if you look on our YouTube page and also on the website tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. There's an interview I did with Derek Krause that will be on there. Talk to him. He's made his first 2 cup starts of his career these past 2 weekends. So yeah, good talk with him. And I even snuck in some Wisconsin football Packers talk and stuff. So yeah. And
you hear him try. Did you keep the Giannis part in?
Oh yeah, I kept that in there.
Him trying to say Giannis Antetokounmpo is 10 out of 10 good fun. So check out that on this page, youtube.com/frontstretch. Make sure you subscribe to that. Facebook.com as well. So if you're on our Facebook page, hit that like button. If you're on the podcast feed. This is a long plug. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. How about this? Share this with a friend. So make sure you do that as well. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thank you to Devon. Thanks, Massey. Thanks, Caleb. And thank you so much for listening to this edition of Happy Hour.